My dream is to see you on doing one of these food stories on Drunk History. Like, that's all I want from you.
Welcome to Millennials Looking for Mentors. I'm Klein.
And I'm Elyse and Klein.
Thank you to Jefferson Health for sponsoring our first ever episode.
Right in the new year. Happy New Year.
Happy 2022.
How did you ring it in, Klein?
Elyse just realized when you hold up two peace signs, it's 2022. And if you aren't watching this and you can't see us holding up two peace signs, consider yourself lucky, because
I would say just imagine it, but it's honestly not worth it. So
no, not at all. But yes, so the reason we're here, besides just hanging out, we're starting this podcast, which I low-key forgot about for like 2 minutes.
No, it's very exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. We're on this is episode 1. Millennials Looking for Mentors. We are just, what should we call ourselves? Clueless? Can we call ourselves clueless?
I think privately, I feel like if we give up how clueless we are, then people aren't going to want to talk to us.
Got it.
You know, so we got to be like, hey, we know what we're doing, but we want to make sure you know what you're doing. So can you tell us everything that you know?
So this is an act.
Yes, totally.
Okay, cool.
Totally.
Cool. But basically, we're going to talk to a bunch of South Jersey women who we think are really cool. And I'm sure everyone else will, about how they got to where they are in their career.
Mm-hmm. It's a very self-serving situation, and I'm totally fine with it.
I mean, what? Yeah. I'm trying to put myself first. That's what Queer Eye has taught me in the past like 48 hours.
Is that your New Year's resolution in 2022?
I'm not making a New Year's resolution because that, there's the whole like, don't make resolutions anymore. Just like take life day by day now.
Okay. All these trends.
It's weird.
Intention.
What?
Is that a New Year's intention?
Okay.
So your intention is to wake up every day and say, what can I do to serve Klein?
See,
and today that is this podcast.
That sounds more hippie than what I just said.
I know.
Somehow.
Hippie's in.
I know. It's like trendy hippie. And I'm all about it.
Yeah, it's a little woo-woo. I can get behind it.
I mean, you're the one who goes to a psychic. So.
Frequently.
Yeah. Yeah. Like has a psychic.
Mm-hmm. Her name's Tracy. I love her.
Got her on speed dial. Is speed dial still a thing? Is that not? Okay.
How would you speed dial? There's my dog. There he is. Go, go, go.
Oh, the tail.
Mr. Man, go upstairs.
Okay. Do you want to tell everybody about our first guest?
Yes. So guest.
Today, if anyone has a diction class I can take, that'd be great.
Yeah, probably, because my Scranton accent's going to come out pretty soon. So, so today we are chatting with Lani Palmisano. She is the host of WHYY's Delishtory and Check Please Philly, and I am a little bit obsessed with her and all of her food reporting. Same. She's so quirky and so much fun.
I love her. I like to think we're friends. I hope that she would say we're friends too. We're definitely. No. I'm getting her confused with someone. I was about to be like, we're definitely Instagram friends, but like I think
we're Instagram friends.
I haven't. Oh no. I mean like we talk to each other on Instagram.
No, we're like her and I talk to each other on Instagram mostly because I just stalked her Twitter for a long time. And I think she was like, well, this girl's around to stay. So I guess I'm going to deal with it. And that's how we got her.
Yeah, that's where I need to get to. I just need to do it. There you go. That'll be my New Year's intention. Is to
Instagram stalk people?
No, I do that already. I don't need that as a goal. To become Instagram friends with Lani.
Oh, and yeah, definitely. Highly
suggest. By the way, this is a very much one side. Like, she's the nicest person ever and would 100% answer me every time and be like, this is great, and give me recipes. I just need to actually do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But the conversation was awesome with her. She's amazing. You're gonna love her. I'm saying that like I'm saying it to you. This is weird. This is normal, totally normal. Yeah.
Anyway, we should probably just switch to her now because she's a little bit better than we are.
Yeah.
When you tell people that you are a travel and food writer, does everyone just assume that you like trot around the globe and get free dinners all the time?
Yeah, I think people do assume that.
So what do you do every day then?
What do I on the daily?
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much more research than there is actually fun stuff. It's like 85% research and 15% fun.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's like so much more research, calling up sources, the actual like writing part, and then like the experience is such a small fraction of it. Oh wow, sorry, my cat decided that he wanted to mess with something behind me. Sorry about that.
You're currently doing 2 shows with WHYY, right? There's Check Please and Delishtory.
Yeah, I mean,
really hard to say.
Delishtory. It's delicious and history. Delishtory.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't happen simultaneously. Check Please, we had produced before the pandemic, and we're waiting till things are kind of settled down through the region. And also everyone's on the same page because we don't just cover just Philadelphia. It's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and South Jersey. And all of these regions are kind of like doing things a little differently. So we're waiting for things to kind of stabilize to get back into Check Please. But in the meantime, we had produced a short digital series that kind of focused on interesting, quirky stories about food, or the foods we know and love from perspectives that, you know, were completely unexpected.
So you've always been very good about, I think, taking that history and again, making it super easy to digest and a lot of fun. Like you started with your cookie series, right? On your Facebook Live cookie series. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was okay. So the Facebook Live cookie, it was when Facebook Live was a new product, and I had been a social media director for a travel publication, and I had to learn how to use this product. So before jumping onto our verified platform that we had, I figured, let me just like create a dummy page and test it out and learn what works, what doesn't work. And so I created this page called Foodful Thinking. My husband and I created this page called Foodful Thinking, and we did a series called Friday Night Cookies. Worst time slot ever was like 9 p.m. on Fridays, because that was when he came home and that's when he was available. And we did it together, and every week was like a different cookie. And it wasn't just like, oh, let's dunk our cookies, let's give it the dunk test, see if it holds up in milk. It was talking about the history. Oh, by the way, the milk was in wine glasses. Like we got really, we had a lot of fun as time.
You have to, if it's Friday at 9 p.m.
Yeah. Everyone else is like at the bars and clubs, and we're in my like dirty South Philly apartment. Like there were times where like in the background, there was like a trash bag of clothes that I kept meaning to take to Goodwill, and like it was,
we all have that trash bag in the corner.
Yeah, but that was like in the, like visibly in the corner behind me. And you know, there were weeks where I had these balloons for my birthday, and they just like slowly every week were deflating. My cat would get involved, and it really was just like for fun to see like, would people watch this thing? And people did watch that thing. That page blew up that summer. We had like millions of views. There were 47 or like 46,000 followers that just like organically like got to the page, and people really liked it. And that actually ended up becoming like the platform for a food and travel publication through Gannett. Like they kind of acquired the property, and like we built it out into something called Eat Sip Trip. And then Eat Sip Trip kind of got like folded back into USA Today 10 Best, the travel vertical there. But I still do, you know, help them out with their food editorial and whatnot. But that was quite a journey, but that it all started with like cookies and talking about the history of cookie brands. Like the very first episode was Oreos. And I think a lot of people know about how before Oreo, there was another cookie called the Hydrox cookie, but we all know of Oreo, and the Hydrox cookie is like you know, some people buy it out of nostalgia because I think a company bought the brand and revamped it, but really it's like Oreo is America's favorite sandwich cookie.
Right.
And that's the show that got you your gig at Check Please, right?
Oh yeah. An important part of, yeah. So I had downloaded all of the videos and I put them up on YouTube and I put them up on my personal website of like, yeah, I did this cookie show. And I think like it was people at WHYY saw it and they were like, well, she can talk for like 30 minutes straight about a single cookie. So
if she can talk about cookies for 30 minutes, what else can she talk about?
Yeah. But also I think it was like the approach. It was my favorite thing to do is take this big idea, this big topic, this thing that everyone is super familiar with, and then drill down into like this hyper specific weird history about it. Like about how the chocolate chip cookie, the Toll House chocolate chip cookie, was kind of like the worst licensing deal by a place, like by a woman who ran an actual inn called the Toll House. I think it was like in Massachusetts or somewhere in New England. I got to brush up on that history, but she had developed the chocolate chip cookie, and Nabisco approached her and they were like, hey, listen, we'll like give you a lifetime supply of chocolate chips in exchange for the Toll House cookie recipe. And I think like there was also maybe $1 involved.
Right.
But it was like such a bad licensing deal. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, take something that we all know about or a lot of people know about and then just like flip it.
Right. But it's so interesting. You seem to have found such the perfect niche for you. Like you're so good at the storytelling and your interest of food, just that's the perfect combination. I saw on your website you call yourself an edutainer.
Yes.
In education, I want to say teacher, but you know, education specialist, entertainer. That seems like such a specific combination that I don't know if I would ever think of that being possible. Did you always know you wanted something like that?
I think to an extent, and just kind of kept pursuing the projects and doing the things that I really, really enjoyed. Like I really loved that moment in school when you would walk into the classroom and that TV was rolled into the classroom, the big box TV on like the wheelie cart. And you know, oh, what are we gonna like watch today? Is it gonna be like Reading Rainbow? Is it gonna be like Miss Frizzle? Is it going to be, you know, Bill Nye the Science Guy? And I really admired those people. And like, I admired that type of teaching where it was like, oh, school doesn't have to be this dry, boring, memorizing facts, like, you know, concept or whatever. It can actually be fun. It can be entertaining. And so that's how I was always able to retain information. And even through school, like people think, like I'm a little bit shy. I am, like, despite being a TV personality, I can be sometimes very shy, but I love to take the focus off of myself and put it onto another topic or a subject and give it the old razzle dazzle. So every presentation in school, I was so nervous and so scared, but like when I would get up there, I would just perform and have fun, and sometimes would write songs and perform all of these, like, and that would be how I presented my projects. And you know,
what did you write songs about? That's amazing.
Oh wow,
I was relating to you until you got to that point. I was like, oh, I would never. Like, I totally understand the being nervous, but once you're up there thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
The easiest thing was to change the lyrics of songs and jingles. It was a lot of like commercial jingles. I would change the words to the songs to specifically, I remember my freshman year of high school, we would do like SAT vocabulary words and everyone would get like a different word. And every Friday we'd have to do a small presentation on that word. And we were allowed to do whatever we wanted. We could write a poem, like kids did videos, like, but every week there'd be a musical number by Lani.
That's amazing.
At the time, Kennedy, but like, yeah, by me. And everyone, like, it got to the point where people expected it from me. So I was like, well, now I have to deliver.
That's so great. Oh my God, that's so
and
great.
It helped that I worked at Cold Stone Creamery at the time too. So
oh yeah,
like everything.
Life lessons from Cold Stone Creamery.
Yep.
Honestly, yeah. So what got you into food specifically? Because obviously you're really into the history and the education of it, but why food?
Yeah, that's a good question. I started out in travel, and one of the first things that you talk about with travel is like, where should I eat? What food should I not miss? What food represents this place? And there was kind of, I enjoyed, like, on the local level before traveling internationally and everything, I was just so enamored with like, oh, we're so about our hoagies and cheesesteaks here, and we will fight anyone over like how our sandwiches are the best. And yet, like, oh, then upstate New York, they call them the subs or the heroes. Like, there's and all this etymology and just how like passionate people are about the foods that represent them. And also too, there's like an exchange. I used to like going over to people's houses, and you get to enjoy what their home cooking is, and that home cooking tells a story about people who endured and people who like sacrificed to come to the United States, and also represent cultures that are quite resilient, and that some of these histories stretch back hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, have other cultural influences. So like, especially when I started to travel internationally, I started to pick up on the concept that like, oh, like these foods tell a story. And then when you get to talking to the people behind the food, like the chefs, but then you start talking to like winemakers and brewers, and then you start talking to farmers and things like that, and just the whole chain of it, you start to realize like just how passionate these people are about what they're doing. And also too, there's just something really endearing about people who love to feed other people. That's like the ultimate act of love, is like, oh, did you eat? You know,
it's my favorite question.
eat.
So, but I'm sure this isn't a specialty that you can just like walk on to a magazine or newspaper and be like, I'm going to write about food now. Like, how do you get into this type of specialty in writing?
Yeah, I think it's, everybody has to find their place in the constellation of the industry, because it is vast. And you know, you start out with what you know. I think that was like in travel, the biggest rule was start out with what you know. Start writing about things in your backyard. Start writing about the places that you know about, because the places that you know about are actually a destination or something of interest to other people. And I was just so lucky to live at that time in Philadelphia when I was first starting out. So I was like, I live in Philadelphia. And, you know, about a decade ago, Philadelphia was just starting to get people's attention as more than just a stopover between DC and New York, and like more than just like Independence Hall and checking out the Liberty Bell and going to Betsy Ross's house and everything. It started to, you know, people started paying attention more to the food, the city's history, and the things that were kind of like happening there. So I got to write about what I knew, and started off small, you know, started for a few websites here and they started with very low pay, sometimes no pay, but I don't condone people doing no pay. It's just, you know, I had done that because it was sometimes just a foot in the door, and definitely worked in a completely different field while writing on the side. I was in the very glamorous field of facilities maintenance management and construction, which
and
is
you
like
left?
Yeah, very fancy for like commercial janitorial services. Yeah.
I mean, that's the dream. I don't know why you switched.
Oh, facilitating the window washing for all of the Targets in the Midwest. Yes.
Nice.
Things like that. Or, you know, the job that I had before, like actually like getting hardcore into writing, it was actually very good. It was like dance floors and performing arts centers. So that was actually a lot of fun. And I really did enjoy that. But I also was like, sorry guys, I gotta go pursue some dreams.
Follow my dream.
I gotta go. I knew I had to go. I was very happy there, but I just knew that I was like, well, I'm gonna be even happier taking this like big leap of faith. So
how did you know that point? Because I could so see myself I get very comfortable where I am sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, I'll do that in like a month, or I'll do that in another month, like when I'm totally ready. How do you know you've hit the edge of that cliff that you just need to jump?
I don't know. Like, yeah, that is a good question. I think that's going to be different for everybody, but I had the, I had like a rough patch in my own personal life where my dad had passed away. He had sadly died by suicide. And then 7 months later, my grandmother passed away from cancer. And then there was just like this moment of like, life is very fragile. Right. And I should probably pursue the things that I really love and make the mark that I would like to make on the world, and contribute to conversations that are meaningful to me, rather than, as much as I enjoyed it, making sure that the American Ballet Theater was ready for the new season.
Very respectable mission in life.
Yeah, but... and maybe for another person that is totally their dream job, and so right. That's good that I didn't take up that space for someone else to slip in. Yeah. So that was kind of, I had some things going on in my life where I from my father's passing, I had also had a small a modest inheritance that kind of like freed me from things like student debt. Like those are right. Real barriers to entry for people. And I totally recognized that, I had kind of that breathing room and that freedom to be able to make the jump that I did. So I'm not saying like, chase your dreams. Like, no, you gotta be like really, practical about your right. move and strategic. Right. But it's not totally impossible.
I mean, you hear lots of stories of people doing it. It's just a matter of.
Oh, and the support too. Like if you have family and friends, and I gotta say too that like while working at that company, like in a completely different field, I was going to conferences for the field that I wanted to be in. So even before my dad's passing, my grandmother's passing, I was making my moves, which was networking, getting to know different people, learning the lay of the land, and figuring out how food. It wasn't even like food media like came a little bit later. It started out as like travel media, and then there's like a lot of travel people, like areas of travel, and I just happened to like come into food and travel and say like, oh, that's the cross section. That fits me perfectly. Because I tried other things. I tried like outdoor writing. I did like the national parks for their 100th anniversary. What else? Oh, hotels. And I'm like, I can't. It's not my shtick. But
that sounds like a specific lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, oh, well, if there's interesting food at said hotel, maybe. Right. Yeah. So it was a lot of experimenting, testing things out, talking to people, asking questions, getting to know people. So
one of the maybe scary things about doing this is that you just came off of winning an Emmy for Check Please. Is that does that like get like held over you when you're doing these fun things? Or are you just like, oh, I'm going to have fun with it and we'll see if anything happens?
I mean, I don't feel a pressure from it, but what, you think to yourself like, oh, I need all the validation in the world. Like, or like, social media is like a validation platform, and like what we do, like getting projects and being able to write for different outlets is also like a form of validation. And you would think that, when you get an Emmy, that would go away, but no, it doesn't. Now I'm just it's Emmy award-winning anxiety. Like it's I still have a lot of like the same like, oh, I hope I get like likes on this recipe, or like, I recently launched my own podcast, Amuse Bouche, which is about these types of food stories. And that concept is like the big ideas in small bites kind of thing that I have found myself in. And you know, it's just like, oh, will people like it? It's like, oh, that anxiety. So yeah, maybe there is like a little bit of like nervousness of like, is this quality work? I don't know.
How
Well,
how do you, I don't want to say cope, that sounds like an intense word. How do you deal with any kind of either negativity or just stress about negativity when you're approaching these projects?
Uh Taking breaks and then just kind of reminding myself that these are the best problems. I would have dreamed for these problems 5 years ago. Oh, what,
Right.
5 years ago I would have been, you know, would have dreamed about getting even a rejection email from an editor, because sometimes you
Right.
can, like, get an
yeah,
email
right.
back.
Don't I know it?
Well,
Yeah.
I love the podcast. I know you started the podcast with Kate Morgan, who also writes
Yes.
for SJ a lot, and who we are also obsessed with.
Yep.
And I was listening to it and I was texting her the whole time, like answering questions that she had was
that's
talking to you
awesome.
about. She's like, where are you? Like, what are you doing that you're texting me 15 texts about like my family's food? It's like, don't worry about it, Kate.
That's so cool. Yeah, she was like the perfect person to kick off that podcast. And, you know, I start a lot of projects kind of with like a vague idea. And really, most of my projects come into their own. It's kind of like when you start, when you remember fondly a television show and then you start from the beginning and then you realize like, oh wow, the characters really get developed as they go later on. It is kind of like a, with every project that I create, it's coming into its own, and there is this process of like, it's finding itself, it's finding its voice, it's finding its tempo, and also learning how to do it. Yeah, there was like a little bit of a learning curve, but I wouldn't be able to learn about it or even find what that podcast was going to be about unless I actually like produced it. That's kind of my process, is to just go into it and then figure it out as I go along.
Yeah, we
we're
get that.
very happy you do that. Yeah. I'm like, oh, validation. Great.
Yeah, right. I was telling Klein that you're the one who got me like absolutely hooked on food media, because we did an
Oh, I'm so
interview.
happy to hear that.
I think we did what, 2 years ago, and I had all I wanted was like basically a recipe for mulled wine, and you were
Oh,
like,
yes.
here's how you make it, but also here's all the history behind it, and here's why it's important, and here's what's going on in food media, and my mind was blown. Like
Yay.
I've spent the last year and a half, 2 years since then, like diving into everything.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
You've gotten me very into food media Twitter, which is like a community in itself.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a hoot to watch and follow. And
It's
you know,
something.
I'll chime in every now and again, but yeah, there's always something very interesting happening. But I think the conversations are definitely needed. And there's a lot of amazing changes that are happening because of these conversations. You know, I think right now Netflix has High on the Hog with the person who launched the Whetstone magazine, which is an independent publication focusing on those foodways, those types of conversations. And the reason he was able to build his career up to developing this docu-series with Netflix about, you know, African influence on American cuisine, he got to that point because he wasn't allowed to, like, not allowed, but like he didn't, you know, mainstream publications were like, they didn't want to have that conversations. They thought it was like either too political or too niche or that wouldn't interest their readership. But like, so he was like, fine, I'm going to start Whetstone magazine. He started Whetstone magazine. That like he grew it organically, just because people were hungry for those types of stories. And he proved that, but it was like, he had to go out there and actually create the proof of concept before people were like, oh, we probably should be having these conversations. Now Bon Appetit is, you know, coming out with entire issues dedicated to the African diaspora. And, you know, a lot of food media is now focusing on people of color, their food stories. And that's more reflective of what America looks like today. We're an extremely diverse country, which is awesome because we're like super spoiled that we get to experience so many amazing stories and culinary traditions. You know, we're really fortunate to live in South Jersey and in the Philadelphia region where we can, you know, have Thai food one night, or specifically not just Thai food, but like Southwest Thai, or like, you know, the really specific nuanced cuisines. We're not just going out for Mexican food, we're going to go out for like Peruvian food or like Argentinian food. And so we have like that diversity and those nuances that we get to experience. And when you travel like around the world, there's not too many places where you can have that much abundance so hyper concentrated in one place. So we're lucky.
That is very true.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
I just had to stop because now I'm thinking about Thai food.
Oh yeah.
I just had to take a break. Now I'm like, I should get Thai food for dinner.
Oh,
that actually sounds like a
wonderful.
really good idea.
It's like
Right?
super comforting. It's like a Thursday, and it's gonna be rainy tonight, so it's like, oh, it's a, you know, a good
I'm
rainy night
sold.
meal. Yeah.
All through college, once I transitioned out of like the dining hall life, I was like super basic, and every Friday I would just get pad thai. Every Friday, same place, same dish.
Do we all
Love
have that chapter of our post-college years? Because I did the same exact thing.
It's because it's so good and it's so comforting.
Yeah.
It's just like, you had a tough week. Finals are hard.
Yeah, mine
Can't
was
think
the
about
same,
it.
but drunken noodles.
Oh, yes.
Love drunken
Nice.
noodles.
Nice.
Which actually, I was also telling Klein this earlier, that my dream from you, and as you know, I've been following your work for like
Thanks.
since I've met you for 2 years now. My dream is to see you on doing one of these food stories on drunk history. Like, that's all I want from you.
That essentially what like almost borderline is Delishtory. Like, but instead of drinking and being drunk, I'm just like drunk off the topic. Like,
Yeah, you're just really
Yeah.
excited.
but it was funny because when we released the promo, I watched it on WHYY, and then the recommended video afterward was drunk history.
Was it?
That's
Yeah.
a sign.
I was like, on brand, excellent.
That's amazing.
Did you find that you kind of just not fell into, obviously, but just found yourself understanding what your brand was and it just kind of built its way as it went? Or did you have any points where you kind of felt like you had to pivot a little bit?
Oh, I definitely feel like it's still a work in progress. I don't know if I'll ever like to have a brand. That's so hard for an individual, just because individuals change and evolve over time, and their interests develop. And I know for
Right.
myself, like, I feel like every couple of years, what I'm doing evolves and kind of pivots. Like, if I look back to a couple of years ago when filming Check Please, like, I was still predominantly in travel. I like when I first met the producer for Coffee to talk about the show and talk about auditioning, I literally had just gotten back from New Zealand. Like, I was doing some
Wow.
work down there, and you know, it was fun to come back home and focus just on Philadelphia, where I kind of like, oh, that's where my writing career kind of started, was focusing on Philadelphia. Now it's back in Philadelphia. And that was all about like the dining scene in Philadelphia. So I got to explore like the dining scene, and I became like a lady about town, one who dines out.
Lady about town.
Oh yeah. Like one who dines out like all
That's the
time.
dream.
Yeah, I was lots of dining out. And then when the pandemic happened, that had to like revert. And, you know, I guess my online brand became more about like home cooking. I started doing like recipe development and everything, which is a hard gig. And
Gardening.
yeah, gardening. Yes. Yeah. I started doing like more gardening and getting into that. So that kind of like, I had to steer a little bit, still talking about dining and doing takeout and everything, but that was something that I had to roll with the punches, and kind of find a tangent that, you know, fit and was also interesting to me. But then when they approached me to write scripts, like research and write scripts and do the Delishtory series, that clicks very deeply with me because of the history component, the education component, and that's where everything I wanted to do as a child, like just collided, and it was all of the things at once. And then
you seem like this like little kid, like,
oh, thanks.
who not yeah, you took that in a good way, which is good. No, you seem like this little kid who just got so excited about a topic and they just like popped you on TV to talk about it. Like,
yeah,
it's so much fun.
It's just, I get very nerdy about something and I go, oh, I learned this thing, I read this thing. And you know, it was such like an awesome experience, like as the series was coming out, like having teachers message me and be like, oh, we did this, we did the what was it, the apple pie versus pumpkin pie video for our history class, and the cinnamon video for the history class.
So nice.
And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm what the kids are waiting for when the TV gets pushed into the classroom. It's a dream come true.
You're the Miss Frizzle of food.
Yeah, which I love that nickname. That was a fun little moniker a friend had given me. So, and I took it and ran with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I would say, like, I am terrible at branding myself online. I don't know how to take pictures to post. I don't know like what I should be saying. I don't know why anybody cares. So like, I'm very bad at it, but also I have a lot of opinions that I feel like maybe should or should not be public. Is that something that you have a hard time with, especially because you talked about some of the histories you're talking about aren't, you know, super positive?
Oh yeah. That's walking like a line, because sometimes I'm like, oh, is what I have to say valuable? And I think like if I don't tweet something, that's usually what I'm thinking. I'm thinking to myself like, there's more important people saying these things. But then it's like, no, it probably is important for me to at least like mention, like, for instance, it seems like such basic knowledge to just like tip the wait staff well these days. I mean, even beforehand, I never did less than 20%, but especially now after a year where they were frontline workers, not getting paid the best, having to deal with the pandemic, like adapting to situations. Like I tweeted about like, just a reminder, treat the wait staff really well and tip them generously. And they got like tons of retweets and likes. And I was like, really? But I guess like that's people agreeing with me and that's great and all. But I felt as though, does that really need to be said? But sadly, and we do live in a world where it's like, oh, that does need to be said. Because that's not second nature to some people. But yeah, in terms of like a brand online, just it's whoever you are. Like sometimes I talk about cartoons, sometimes I talk about the movies I'm watching, and there is a lot of conversations like happening on social media, but I always want to be the place that people can come to and find some good humor, find something light. And even in the way that I discuss the Johnny Appleseed thing or how cinnamon drove a lot of conquest, I'm using humor as a way to kind of like disarm people that might be a little defensive about how much they love Johnny Appleseed, or people who might not be too receptive. But people are a lot more receptive when you're using humor and you're talking about it in like a light and frank way instead of like a disciplinary lecture-y way. And also too, like it for kids, because now I'm realizing that like it's interestingly, it's like a lot of kids that watch the Delishtory show. Kids are so much more intelligent than people may consider, and they can handle complex topics. But if you present the topics in a way that are like, if you present it in a way that's like normal, Like, this is a normal conversation. This is the history period. There's no like romanticization about it. They will actually absorb it. And I feel like if they're going to be the next generation of leaders, get that information to them now, Like, I feel like I remember hearing about Christopher Columbus sailing the ocean blue, and it was like, oh yeah, he wanted to prove that the earth was like round. And it was like, no, mankind had totally known that the earth was round for like hundreds of years prior to that happening. It was really about trying to find more spices that could compete with the spice trade.
Right. Like 80% of my unlearning is Christopher Columbus related.
Yeah.
So actually that brings me to my first question of, we do a segment called This or That.
Ooh.
And so you have to answer we're going to rapid fire. Me and Klein are going to go back and forth.
Rapid fire.
Oh, this is dangerous.
And you got to answer. Yeah. First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
So my first one, pork roll or Taylor ham?
Pork roll.
They don't all have a correct answer, but that one did.
Yeah, that one did. Yes.
It's like Kleenex and tissue. It's like Taylor ham is a brand. Kleenex is a brand, but yeah.
That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay. Work from home or in office / studio?
I've been working from home for years. But yeah, so from home.
Digital calendar or paper planner?
Paper planner.
Bullet
journal. Yeah. Or maybe
I
even
love
both.
a bullet journal.
Oh yeah. I just started bullet journaling again. Like, I abandoned it when the pandemic started, because I was like, I have no plans and there's no plans to be had. But I actually like just ordered one a couple weeks ago because I was like, I have plans now. I have things to put on a calendar.
That's actually really funny. I'm getting to the end of my planner and I'm like, oh, you need to get another one. Like the year is starting over again. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Yes. I lied. These all have correct answers, and you're doing really well so far.
So breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
That one's also correct.
Or breakfast for dinner.
Oh,
that's one of my faves.
You'll get my mom on that one. She'll eat that every day.
But that's all she can cook, so there's that.
True. That's true. Yeah, I can't wait to follow you on Instagram because I'm at such a disadvantage cooking wise. So.
Oh, no worries. I tell people all the time that like my job is just learning in public, and even my Instagram is me learning how to make things. So no worries.
Like that's the best kind of content. That's what I want on Instagram. I don't want to see someone who like has perfected everything. I want someone to make me feel a little bit better about my lack of skills.
Excellent. Oh, that gives me a mission now. Like that's my audience. That's my brand. Hot mess.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. This was
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. It was such a casual conversation.
Good. That's what we go for. I don't know how to do not casual conversations, so I think that's why everything we do is just like casual.
Nice.
Quickly, do you want to list off where people can find you? And I'll plug it in at the end.
Sure. Yeah. You can find my work on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Lani Says. I also have a Substack newsletter called Amuse Bouche, and the podcast Amuse Bouche, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you like to listen to your podcasts.
Thanks to Lani for that awesome interview, and thanks everybody for listening.
We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so make sure to come back.
And in the meantime, if you have anyone you want to hear us talk to, shoot us a message. You can also email us at mlfmpodcast@gmail.com.
Bye.